Alright, so in this video we're going to be talking about using proportions from pictures and graphs. So it's really important that you still understand that we have to set up a word ratio and then set up the rest of the proportion based on that word ratio. It's just that we're going to be taking information from pictures and graphs. So the first one's talking about David polling people at the mall and trying to determine which type of movies they preferred. So letter A says, of the people polled, 210 preferred to watch comedies. So we know that this group had 210 people in it. We also know that that chunk of the pie is 35%. That's a big key to figuring out how to set up the proportion. We're talking about a percent out of the total. Remember, there's two things that we know about a percent. It's always out of the total, and it's always out of the 100. So we can already start by putting 35 over 100. We really want to think about what that percent's talking about. It's talking about the people who like comedy. So we know that's 35 out of 100, and we know there's 210 people that like comedy. We don't know the total. It's saying, what is the total number of people? So we know 210 is going to go on top. We don't know the total number of people yet. Now we're going to cross multiply and solve the proportion. 35 times x is just 35x. 210 times 100 is 21,000. Our next step is to do 21,000 divided by 35. That tells us that x is 600. You always want to make sure your answer actually makes sense. Does it make sense for 600 to be the total number of people? Well, if 35% like comedy, and there's 210 people that like comedy, it should be a little bit less than half, which 200 is compared to 600. Letter B says, if a total of 1,500 people were polled, how many people preferred horror movies? So now we're talking about this group over here. That's 5%. So now we're talking about the horror percentage. And it's always out of a total if we're talking about a percent. That's 5% out of 100. And they say the total number of people is 1,500. That's the number that goes on the bottom. We don't know the number of people who actually like horror movies. So we're trying to find the number of people. We know the percent right now. We know the number out of 100, but we don't know the actual number of people yet. So we're going to cross multiply. 100 times x is 100x. 1,500 times 5 is 7,500. 7,500. We divide by 100 on both sides. And x is 75. 5% is a pretty small percentage, so 75 out of 1,500 makes pretty good sense. Example 2 is giving us a bar graph that's talking about the favorite pets in Mr. Nussbaum's classroom. So we're talking about three people who like dogs, 4 people who like cats, 2 people like fish, and this one guy likes hamsters. So we're going to use that diagram to answer these questions. What percent of students said that a dog or a cat was their favorite pet? The big thing is there that they're asking for a percent. We don't know. We don't know the percent yet. So what is the percent? That means that's going to be our x. The percent always goes over 100, so we know we're going to start out with that percent out of 100. We don't know that yet. That's going to be our x. The percent is really describing the people who like dogs or cats. The key thing here is we're talking about dogs and cats, those people, those 7 people, out of the total. It's 7 out of the total number of people in that bar graph, which is 10. 3 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. You might even be able to do this in your head. 7 out of 10, you might be able to figure out that percent, but we're going to cross multiply. 10 times x is 10x. 7 times 100 is 700. You divide by 10, and x is 70. That makes perfect sense. 7 out of 10 is 70%. It's most of the people. Most of the people like dogs or cats. Letter B says the whole school was surveyed and the proportions remain the same. That's basically giving it away that we're setting a proportion. You could also think of this as saying the ratios stayed the same. Both of those phrasings would mean the same thing. It basically means set up a proportion. If there are 500 people in the school, how many people did not say hamster? We're talking about everybody who did not say hamster. That includes dogs, cats, and fish. I'm not sure who's picking fish, but that's the rest of the people other than that one hamster guy. So it's 3 plus 4 plus 2. That's 9 people total. 9 people out of 10 said not hamster. We're trying to figure out, of 500 people, how many would say that same thing. So we don't know the number of people out of the 500, but we know there's a total of 500 people in the school. So again, we're going to cross multiply. 10 times x is 10x. And 9 times 500 is 4,500. Divide by 10 on both sides, and that gives us that x is 450 people, which makes a lot of sense. Most of the people, almost all of the people said not hamster. So almost all of the 500 people should also not say hamster. All right, this last one is from a map of the Great Lake area. The map represents Northern America. 2.5 inches on the map represents 150 miles in actual distance. So we're talking about on the map in inches and 150 miles in real life. When they give us units, it's an easy giveaway for what the units are in the word ratio, inches compared to miles. It says if Green Bay is 3.25 inches away from Chicago on the map, how far are the two cities away in miles? So we're talking about 2.5 inches representing 150 miles. Those two numbers match up, so we put them together in a fraction, comparing inches and miles. On the second fraction, we're talking about Green Bay being 3.25 inches away from Chicago. We don't know the number of miles. We don't know the miles, but we know 3.25 is the number of inches. It's 3 and then that quarter part. The quarter is 0.25 as a decimal, so I just changed it into decimal. Really don't want to work with fractions inside of a fraction. 3.25 times 150 and 2.5 times x. After we cross multiply, it's 2.5x and 487.5 on the right side. You divide 487.5 by 2.5, and x is 195 miles. That makes sense. 3.25 is a little bit bigger than 2.5, so this should also get a little bit bigger.